So welcome everybody. We just went through the quick basics of setting up those sheets in Smartsheet. Those instructions are here and they are in the course itself, so you can refer back to them. This is Dashboards for Marketing, Smartsheet training. Welcome. This is a new course that we have created. Very excited about it and would love to hear your feedback after this course. Before we do go any further, though, I need to share this legal slide with you, and it simply says, if I make any forward-looking statements and talking about Smartsheet's future plans, future enhancements, anything of the like, that Smartsheet is not financially responsible for any purchases you make based upon those forward-looking statements. And that's because I might hear things. I might hear that we're going to upgrade dashboards in some capacity, but I might not know exactly when, and things might get pushed out for reasons that I am not necessarily aware of at the time I'm telling you. If you want to read that later, you're more than welcome, because a little bit more housekeeping. As you know, this meeting is being recorded. You are going to be able to access this recording after the course. It's going to be emailed to you tomorrow. You will only have access to that recording for 30 days. You can watch it as many times as you'd like for 30 days. After that 30 days, you will no longer have access to it. However, you will still have access to this course. So all of the instructions within this course you will be able to reference later. Questions that you put in the Q&A will also be available on the recording. So if there is a specific question to your needs and you type it in there, I will be monitoring both the Q&A and the chat. So you can ask it and you will be able to reference it later. Excellent. So that is our course introduction. Welcome. My name is AmyMcKenna. I'm a product trainer here at Smartsheet, and before Smartsheet, I was actually a client of Smartsheet. Specifically, I was in marketing operations, so I was helping run a marketing team for a textbook company. And anytime there was a need, a process improvement, some kind of aggregate set of sheets that needed to be made, that ended up being my responsibility. So this dashboards class is loosely and truly based, I do say both in between, based upon my true experiences in marketing operations and what my former marketing team needed. So if you have any questions about how these dashboards fit into your reality, please let's discuss them, because I think it can become really helpful to everyone understanding context from other marketers using Smartsheet as well. So we're going to start with a little bit of dashboards introduction. And what I'm going to do right now is I am going to launch a poll. So you are going to see something appear on the front of your screen. And all it's going to say is, have you made a dashboard in Smartsheet before? I'm going to give this another moment. Excellent. So we do have everybody participating. I'm going to end the polling and I'm going to share the results. So the majority of us have not made a dashboard before. That's fine. No worries here. For those of you who have, I do hope you learn a few things in this class. And I think you will. We're going to talk about a lot of different nuances today. We're going to talk about, I'm going to stop sharing these results. We're going to talk about what a dashboard is first, and then we're going to talk about what the goal of each item that we are creating, why about each item we're creating. I'm losing my words today. I apologize. So let's start with dashboards. This is just the 5 things that we can start getting together. First thing you always want to understand about when you're building a dashboard is, who's your audience? We're going to build a few different dashboards. Some of them are going to be external facing. Some of them are going to be internal facing. And as you understand who your audience is, your dashboard is going to change a little bit. Not everybody needs to know all of the information. Think about it a little bit like you have a project going on that you are sharing with an external client. There are going to be things you share with that external client, but then you might have an internal dashboard highlighting everything that's maybe late, that you don't want to alarm the customer until they need to know. But you want your team to be able to triage very quickly on that internal dashboard. Excellent. Next, think about accessibility and usability. Colors are great on dashboards. I'm a big color coding person. I'm a really visual, really tactile learner. So being able to focus immediately when I look at a color and know what kind of information I'm looking at really drives points for me and helps me focus. In terms of accessibility, you might have teammates who are red-green colorblind. We're going to really avoid the idea of putting a red and green directly next to each other, especially if they're in the same shade, because your teammate might look at that pie chart, this pie chart down here, and if it is red and green in the same shades, they are not going to be able to differentiate between the two, and it's going to look like one large circle. So think about that as you're building a dashboard as well. We're also going to build an executive dashboard at the end of all of this. And we specifically designed this dashboard to be really effective on your mobile device. So I would encourage you, when I was a middle school teacher, I did not encourage students to take out their phone, but I would encourage you to actually take out your phone as you're building this alongside me, or when I give you a chance to build on your own, and check out how it starts to lay out on the Smartsheet app. Really powerful and really fast metrics right at the tip of your fingers. We're going to go through all of the widgets today, so I'm not going to belabor this point too much, but think about what you are trying to accomplish on your dashboard, and we're going to match it with the proper widget. We are also going to visualize all that data. So we are going to look at some sheets that have quite a bit of formulas on them. Only build one formula, and I promise if you are scared of formulas, don't be. I used to be as well. This is going to be really powerful to figure out how you can drive charts, pulling information from other sheets. All right. So to sum up, here we are. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start making a portal. But before I begin, I want to know if anybody has any preliminary questions before we start, before anything else gets lost and we go too far down a rabbit hole. Excellent. I don't hear anybody on the line and I don't see anything in the chat, so let's keep going. I am in the activities for Dashboards for Marketing, and we just went through the course introduction and the dashboards introduction. Those count as activities 1 and 2. So if you see me click and reference here, activity 3, building that external portal, do not worry, we have not lost anybody along the way. I could say technically we're starting at 3. So part of my responsibilities when I was at my old marketing, at the old textbook company, was I needed a way for our team to make creative requests for the creative team. Now, you may or may not work in the creative sphere. Maybe you're a lot more event management heavy. Maybe you're a more campaign marketing or social media marketing heavy, what have you. But what we're going to build is an external portal. And if you think of the traditional definition of a portal, it's a gateway or a door. If you like sci-fi, you already have the idea. But basically, you are taking someone somewhere else. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to give people all of the tools to help themselves and or go find something else. So I'm going to scroll down and you're going to see two items, two widgets to add to the Creative Request portal. And we're going to utilize quite a few other widgets here. We're going to start off slow and we will start ramping this up as we keep going. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to link to the brand guidelines. Now, I am going to ask that you do this alongside me. If I go too quickly, please let me know in the chat and I will be happy to either repeat or slow down some ideas. Other activities, I am going to tell you to do them on your own so that you get to be able to practice a little bit on your own, get yourself frustrated, and ask me questions about what could be going really well or really wrong. So we're going to link to the brand guidelines. And what I'm going to suggest you do first is we're going to copy this link. So I'm going to copy, I right-clicked on the link and copied the link address. Now this is in my clipboard. The next thing that we are going to do is we're going to go into Smartsheet itself. I'm going to do that by going to my other tab. And here in my Dashboards for Marketing folder, we're going to move into the Creative Requests folder. You can see we have a Creative Request portal and we have a Creative Request dashboard, which we'll get to. That's the internal one, but we're going to focus on this external facing portal first. We have some information on here already for you. To start editing your dashboard, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the upper left corner of your screen, and you're going to click Edit. And you're going to see two widgets already made. Now, you don't have to do this exactly with me. I'm just going to show you what these two widgets are. I'm going to double click on this widget. This is what you call a title widget. Creates a nice, clean banner, and you can choose to color code it. This next tile in the middle, this widget in the middle, I'm going to double click on this one, is a rich text widget. This helps establish evergreen information, things that are never going to change for your team. The first widget that we are going to make, though, is we are going to link to the brand guidelines. So we're going to make a new widget, and to do that, we're going to come to the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And again, if you could do this alongside me, that'd be fabulous. We're going to click on Add Widget. And when I do, you're going to choose the shortcut widget. Notice that you see title and rich text below. We're going to start by building a shortcut widget. Next, we're going to click Add Shortcut. When you add a shortcut to your dashboard, you can choose to embed a URL, a cloud-based file, or find a Smartsheet option. We're going to do URL for right now, and later we're going to look for a Smartsheet item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click. Actually, excuse me, I'm going to use Control and then press V because I'm on a PC. You might use Command V on a Mac and paste that link. And just as you're going to create a regular hyperlink, we're going to title it something else. We're going to call it Brand Guidelines and click OK. Fabulous. So the next thing we're going to do, and I am going to ask that you stay on this screen. I'm going to press Done. You do not have to. I'm going to press Done. And you're going to see the brand guidelines appear over here in the far left. Doesn't look tremendously aesthetically pleasing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my widget again. And when I do, we're going to change a few items on here to make it look good. We're also going to make sure it says brand and not Brad. I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to fix that right away. So the first thing that I'm actually going to do is I am going to come over to this area of my widget builder. I have the option to make a left-aligned compact layout or a center-aligned large layout. Now, depending on what your use case is and how you want your dashboard to look, either one is going to work. Right now, we're going to choose center-aligned large layout. Next thing we're going to do is that we don't necessarily need this display title on top. It doesn't hurt because nothing's in here, but I'm actually going to remove it altogether. If I wanted, I can even change the size of my brand guidelines, formerly Brad guidelines, and I can change the size of the font. Maybe I want it a little bit larger, so I'm going to make it a size 12. Excellent. So once you've done that, you can click alongside me. I'm going to click Done. There. Our widget lives right here. So at this point, does anybody have any questions about how we made that widget? Okay. So here are some tips and tricks that I like to do when I'm building a dashboard. Number one, I think it's really frustrating to work on this white background with the very, very faint gray grid lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the upper right-hand corner of my screen, and I'm going to click this gear icon. I'm going to change my background to gray. When I do, I think this is much easier to work with in the widgets. All widgets have a nice white background, unless it's a title widget and you give it a different color background, which does look really nice when you have a finished display, but really frustrating to work with. I'm also going to talk a little bit about this spacing in between the widgets. All widgets have to have at least one little square in between each other. You can't have items overlap. Now, here's the kicker. You're probably messing around with some of yours as well. And for those of you who have made widgets, you've probably been frustrated by this. There is no Control Z. There is no undo in building a dashboard. Therefore, if I put a widget down and everything scurries around away from each other, I can't figure out a way to undo it. So what I suggest that you do is that if you like the way your dashboard is laid out, and albeit a little cumbersome and frustrating, do yourself a favor. Save it. I like the way this looks. I saved it. Now I'm going to come back and edit it. Because if I move items around and I have many more widgets to manipulate, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get everything back to the original way I wanted it. So all I'm going to do right now is cancel. Say, yes, I'm sure I want to lose all of these changes. And my dashboard is back to the last time that I saved it. So a little bit old school, but really helpful in the long run. All right. Fantastic. I'm going to ask that you do an activity on your own now, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but I think it's going to make sense. I'm going to cancel out of this, so my dashboard is currently saved, and I'm going to go back to these activities. We linked the brand guidelines together. I am going to ask that you link to the image gallery. Now, I am going to say that you're going to use an image widget here. It's going to end up looking very similar to this. So you are going to use this download button. You know what? No, we're going to start with, I'm trying to decide. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to try just a little bit of a challenge with you guys first. I'm going to ask that you add a logo. Yep, so I'm going back on my original word. Please add a logo. You're going to use the image widget. It works very similarly to creating that shortcut widget, except you're going to upload an image. And the first image you're going to upload is this MBF core. So please add that logo. I'm going to put a timer up for 3 minutes. When you have completed adding this logo and going through these steps, please raise your virtual hand. And if we have everybody, we can keep going a little bit faster. So I'm going to put this timer up, but before I do, does anyone have any questions about how to make a widget in general? Wonderful. Let's start. I'm going to put this 3-minute timer up. I'm still on the line, so let me know if you need anything. All right, our 3 minutes is up. If you haven't completed it, that's okay. I'm going to give you another moment to do so, but I'm going to move my timer out of the way. And I'm actually going to make the add logo widget myself, because I have not done that, because I was sharing my screen with all of you. So I'm going to go to Edit, Add a Widget, add my image widget, choose my image from my computer, and I have to find my dashboard class. Here we are, my MBF core logo, just like yours. And then I'm going to choose that when I click on this widget, we're going to go to a URL, www.smartsheet.com. Then I'm going to click Done. Now, as you're finishing making your own logo, I want to talk a little bit about making how an image logo works here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help myself first, and I'm going to save this and then edit again. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this logo really large. Now, this logo, this image is only as large as the original sizing is. But what's really neat is that if I shrink it really small, it keeps the integrity of the image itself, so it doesn't get distorted. So I don't know if you guys remember ever trying to change the size of an image in like a Word document, but all of a sudden you made it just a little too skinny and your image was completely different than when you originally started. So that's a really nice safeguard that Smartsheet has for you, that when you have this image widget up here, it's never going to be completely warped. Excellent. I'm going to cancel this. Yep, I would like to lose all those changes. I'm going to edit again. Another thing about the image widget, oops, let me cancel. Right now, it is a button. So if I click on this, it's going to take me to smartsheet.com. However, I'm going to close out of this. If I didn't make this a button of sorts, if I didn't ask my image to go to a URL, I'm going to click Edit and double click and turn off that advanced option. I'm going to say do nothing and save it. If I click on this image once, nothing happens. If I double click, I'm going to get the image right here in front of me, and I can download it if needed. I highly suggest, if you like the way someone's dashboards look, click around and see if you can steal anything. And I unabashedly mean steal. Sometimes putting a line, and we're going to see it when we make the executive dashboard, putting a line, a physical image of a line in between your widgets looks really, really neat and clean. So if you see someone doing that, go ahead and steal their images. I'm no longer in publishing, so I feel like I can use phrases like that, but I digress. Excellent. So we made shortcut widget. We added a logo. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to embed the request form. I'm going to ask that you watch me do this first and then do it on your own. Because I'm going to show you where everything is, and I think it's a little easier for you to watch and then have the time to do it, because otherwise you might be going back and forth between your screen and mine and missing a step. So again, I suggest you watch me do this. I'm going to open up the activity so you know exactly where I am working though. We're going to embed the request form. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a creative request intake sheet. So we're going to a completely different smart sheet before we actually do something. So where am I going to go? I'm going to go into my smart sheet. I have saved my dashboard so I don't lose anything. And I'm going to go to the 3 lines over here in the left panel menu. I am going to make a forward-looking statement right now. This home button is eventually going to be upgraded to, I believe, something called browse. But again, that's a forward-looking statement. So if you go back and watch this video and that change happens in the next 30 days, just be aware of that. I'm going to go into my creative requests folder. And I am going to look at my creative request intake sheet. And that's inside this metrics sources sheet. Now, you see I have 2 sheets right now. First, I have an intake sheet, and then second, I have an archive sheet. We have 2 of these for a very specific reason. We have a creative request process, and if you are taking the whole marketing track, you're going to learn this. If you're not, that's okay. The background is that requests come into the intake sheet, and then designers will mark requests as complete as finishing them, and therefore they're moved to the archive sheet. Now, when we make calculations, this becomes really important, so I wanted to give you the baseline for that. But we are concerned with having our team access the ability to input items on this new sheet and make new requests. So we're going to go to this intake sheet. You can see we have some fake data in here that we're going to manipulate later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Forms button in the upper left corner of the screen and click on Forms. I am going to manage forms. Here I have my creative request form, and I can copy this one of 2 ways. First, I can click on these little interlocking links, and then notice this is copied to my clipboard, or you can come to these 3 dots and choose to copy the form URL. Either way. So I have this on my clipboard. Now I'm ready to go make my widget. I'm going to come over to my creative request portal, and that's in my recents, which is really convenient. And now I'm going to click Edit. We're going to add a widget. We're going to add a web content widget. And what a web content widget is that you are placing a URL on your dashboard for it to live there. As I've gone through this with multiple people from multiple different work streams of jobs and different businesses, it's been really interesting to see what people want on here. A lot of people do want YouTube videos. I had a woman who wanted the CDC YouTube video for hand washing to be on her dashboard. She was doing some specific metrics, and she thought it would be neat just to make sure that the how to wash your hands video was on that dashboard. So we embedded it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select a URL, and it's already in my clipboard. So I'm going to paste this by using Control V. That's my form. I'm going to click OK. When I do, I now see my creative request form here. I don't think I need a display title because I have a really nice bold title right here, so I'm going to remove it. And then I'm going to click Done. Now, widgets, as you're going to start to notice, come from the upper left corner and then find space on the dashboard. It can be really frustrating to try and guess and check what size this widget fits in this space. So I'm going to put it here and then notice that I can't, and I might move widgets around. So another helpful tip that I like to give to clients is that I think you should make your widget obnoxiously small, pull it to the upper left corner you would like to place it, and then expand and drag it down. Excellent. I'm going to drag mine down all the way so I no longer have that little scrolling bar, and then click Save. My form now lives on the dashboard, and it's going to be really convenient for my team that they can look at brand guidelines. Eventually, they might be able to look at the image gallery, which you're going to add on your own. And if they don't have something they need, maybe they need to make a banner for a specific virtual event they'd like to customize, they can make that request here, and it will go onto our creative request dashboard. Another call out I like to make in terms of when you set up your dashboard, and again, some of these instructions are not specifically in the activities. These are just my personal opinions on good habits. You can see right now, I can scroll my mouse wheel, or I can use the scrolling bar to click and drag and move down as needed. I made my widget large enough so that I didn't have to scroll on the widget itself. I'm going to change my widget to show you what I mean. Edit. I'm going to come down to the lower right corner on those little hashings, make it a little bit smaller. Now, and I'm going to save this, I can scroll in two places. Number one on the dashboard itself, but number two on that widget. Now, some people might find that frustrating. I know I do. So I like to be pretty particular when I make my widgets. If I know that I'm not going to have any more information on my dashboard, and we're going to talk about using some dangling ideas here at the bottom of a dashboard later. If I'm not going to have any more information underneath my dashboard, I'm actually going to make my widget just small enough so it fits in one pane of my screen. Save it. This way, no one needs to scroll along the dashboard, and the only item that they need to scroll is this one widget. So I just went through a lot of different things. I showed you how to make a web content widget, and then I talked about best practices in setting up large widgets. Before I send you to finish those on your own, does anybody have any questions? Excellent. So what I'm going to say that you do is we're going to come back into these activities, and we're going to finish up building this external portal and get to the real fun stuff. You're going to embed the request form on your own. Also on your own, you're going to add a link to the image gallery and add a link to the executive dashboard. Now you can see I'm building my widgets a little bit differently, but you can set them up how, I'm setting up my widgets differently. The images are a little bit different, but whatever makes sense to you, go ahead and build that. Oh, I see a question in the Q&A before we get going. You only have a gray and white background, isn't it? Yes, it is either gray or white. Excellent. Great question. Anything else before we keep going? Wonderful. So again, you're going to build embedding the request form. You are going to build adding a link to the image gallery, and you are going to build adding a link to the executive dashboard. I'm going to put a timer up for 7 minutes. I think that is going to be plenty of time. So if you do finish before time is up, please raise your virtual hand. This way we know we have everybody with us. And if you have any questions during that time, I'm happy to answer. Now let me go see if I can find my timer. Oh, I guess I'll have to make a new one. Excellent. I'm actually going to keep, I'll scroll through. I'm going to put embed the request form up first, and then I'll scroll down partway through. 7 minutes. Excellent. Any questions? Let me know. All right. So that 7 minutes is up. I'm going to press OK on that timer. Oh, fantastic. It looks like we have everybody. Everyone's hand is raised. Beautiful. And again, because I have
Is everyone still able to hear me? Would someone please let me know in the chat? I seem to have been having computer issues right now. So if someone would be able to let me know in the chat that you can still hear me, that would be fabulous. Fantastic. Okay. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate that. So it looks like my computer went down, which is really unfortunate because we were just about to go to the next activity. We're going to go into the total request calculations. All right, and it looks like fantastic. Okay. So it looks like I still have everybody. I beg your forgiveness for this. I'm incredibly apologetic. This is not how I wished for this to go, but I'm going to hang on for a moment. Fortunately or unfortunately, having to reboot my computer at this moment, which is not ideal for this. The next activity that we're going to go through, though, is going to be starting to make calculations on the dashboard itself. And I'm doing this a little bit from memory, if you don't mind. So the first thing that we're going to start doing is we're going to make calculations based upon those two sheets that I called out earlier, that creative request intake sheet and that creative request archive sheet. I talked about those two in particular before because what we're going to do is we're going to make two calculations based on that. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to lower everybody's hands. And I am going to ask if you are comfortable writing formulas, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, it looks like we have a few people saying that they are comfortable. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be writing two if statements. Now, in those two if statements, we are going to have the creative request process, again, and adding it to the archive request process. And if you were to open the metric calculation sheet inside your folder, you're going to be able to see the a sheet that has multiple different assets on it. And it looks like my computer's back on. So I'm going to encourage you to take a little adventure while I log back in and look in your creative request folder that you downloaded and find a sheet that says metrics. All right, I'm going to lower everybody's hands right now. And I do sincerely appreciate everyone's patience with this right now. I'm going to join this right now, open up my Zoom meetings.
Great. I think I'm back. I'm going to mute myself on my other device. And you're going to forgive me for this. I very much appreciate this, but I'm going to restore my last place where I was. And fantastic. All right. So thank you very, very much for being so patient with me. I had an inkling that this was going to happen, and I can't really tell you why, but I had a bad feeling it was going to happen. So I'm fortunate enough I put it on my phone so that I could continue talking with you and you weren't all kicked out of the meeting. So fantastic. Thank you so much for your patience. So while I was having my computer reboot, I did see a question come through the chat, and the question was, is there a way to add in the dashboard only some part or cell of another sheet? It's an excellent question. We're actually going to do that in the activity after this one. So once I do actually answer that question for you, I'll mark that as complete. But what we're going to do right now is we are going to calculate total requests. And that's going to go back to your question of how do you add in a specific metric? We have to calculate that first. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a specific 2 COUNTIF functions. Fantastic. I am going to ask that you do this alongside me, and I'm going to open up my creative request portal here. This is where I left off, and I wasn't able to finish building, but we're going to keep going. It's going to be all right. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go into my Dashboards for Marketing folder. I'm in my Creative Requests folder. And this work metrics sheet that I didn't have quite in front of me, I was asking you for a little bit of fun. If you could open that up right now, we're going to be working in this particular sheet. Excellent. So you should see a sheet that looks very similar to mine. What we're going to be doing is we are going to be building a formula that lives in these cells. This is how we're going to calculate all of the requests coming in and out of our sheet. So what I am going to do right now is I'm going to make a cross-sheet reference, a cross-sheet formula. And again, I'm going to encourage you to do this alongside me. I'm going to start with an equal sign. And I'm going to type COUNTIF. I'm going to choose COUNTIF. And you're going to notice here, we're going to count a number of cells that meet in a range that meet a certain criteria. Excellent. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out what that range is, the group of cells to count. I'm going to reference another sheet, so I'm going to click that link. Now, I have quite a few of these creative request intake sheets, so I'm going to find mine manually. You might want to type in creative request intake sheet. So I'm going to scroll down and find mine and click creative request intake. We took a quick peek at this before when we were pulling the form. Now, I see it right here. So what I'm looking to do is I am looking to calculate the status. So I'm going to click on the column header here that says status, and notice my sheet reference has changed. I can physically change that myself if, for instance, I wanted to delete this because it's just extra information I don't need. I could. When you are making cross-sheet references from scratch on your own, I do encourage you to reference your sheet, cross-sheet reference properly in a way that's going to help you remember, because otherwise it's going to be ranges, range 1, range 2, range 3, and it's a little difficult to call back later. So I'm going to insert this reference down here. And again, I'm encouraging you to do this alongside me. So now I have my range. And I'm going to see here. I have range. Then I want to define my criterion. And what you're going to see is that's a value that I'm going to total. So in this instance, I'm actually going to want to total up anything that is not started. So I'm going to hit comma and notice that I have flipped from my range to my criterion. So I'm going to follow my yellow brick road. And now I am going to choose not started as the value. I'm going to suggest that in front of that 2, you click your mouse key one time. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. There we go. So when I've zoomed in, you can see my mouse cursor blinking in front of that 2. Do yourself a favor and put a $sign in front of it. You're not going to change anything, but we're going to press enter. Now you can see that I have 6 items that are being calculated from my creative request intake sheet that have a value of not started. This could be helpful if you are coming from one sheet, but we are pulling information across 2 sheets. And what I'm going to do right now is I am going to hover over this little blue box and drag this formula to the right and release. I have one complete item on my intake list right now, and that's okay. Our automation that moves things from our intake sheet to our archive sheet runs on Sunday mornings. So we're in the middle of the week, someone marked something as complete. That's okay. We can still see it. But that poses a problem because we have more than 8 requests that have come in. And we have completed more than one request because we have many more on our archive sheet. So what we're going to do is we are now going to add a second count if to this formula. But before I go any further, I want to pause here, and I'm going to open up the chat so I can see if anybody has any questions. Does anyone have any questions about the formula we have made so far? Okay, I don't see anything in the chat. I know we have the one open question in the question and answer. And I don't hear anybody asking any questions on the line. So I'm going to keep going. On the outside of this parentheses, where you see my mouse flashing, I'm going to add a plus. And now I am going to add a second COUNTIF formula. And that COUNTIF formula is going to reference the archive sheet. So we have our symbol here. We're starting with a plus. We're going to add a COUNTIF. And I'm going to choose COUNTIF right here, counting cells in a range that meet a certain criteria. Then, I wasn't so zoomed in before. It now might be a little bit easier to see, but the group of cells that we're going to count, we are going to get that from another sheet. So I'm going to click that link. Oop, this is a little too zoomed in. There we go. This is the same creative request intake sheet, but right above it is the archive sheet. Smartsheet assumes that because we were working and pulling metrics from one sheet, it wants to go right back there. So this way you don't have to find it again. But in our case, we are actually going to reference a totally separate second sheet. Excellent. So now you can see I have how many complete items here. I have 6 complete items. So there are 6 more requests even in total that should be appearing on my metric sheet. I'm going to click on the status header. And now you can see archive of creative request intake sheet status. This whole status column is selected, excuse me. I'm going to choose insert reference. Now, I have my archive cross-sheet reference indicated here. At the end of that range, and I know it's a cross-sheet reference range because of these double curly because of those curly brackets, I am now going to add that comma right there and continue on my yellow brick road. The criterion right now is still not started because I'm still trying to calculate how many items are not started. Now, in our use case today, we might not have any not started in our archive sheet, but the reason we still want to pull in anything marked as not started is because what happens if something were canceled? What happens if something were postponed and we just wanted to move it off of our live request sheet? It can be really helpful to separate data in that capacity. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I am now going to put my cursor in front of that 2 and add a $sign. I'm now at the end of my formula. I do have a parentheses here. If you do not, make sure you add one. And I am going to press enter. Now, nothing changed right now. I didn't see any not started items on my archive sheet, so that makes sense. I am going to drag this formula over again to my completed section, and there we have it. Those 6 completed items are now being totaled up in that complete area, coming from 2 different sheets. So we have the total of 7, and we have a sum here that is totaling up all of the requests that have come into play. I'm going to pause here for questions. All right, I don't hear anything on the line, and I don't see anything in the chat right now, so let's keep going. We're going to talk through a little bit about what else is in this metric sheet. We have total requests right here. We have requests by resource, and that request by resource is calculating if Mark Lee has an item that is not started, total it. If Mark Lee has an item that is not started on the archive sheet, total that up as well. And this little matrix table is much more apt to have your formulas change on you because of the way you drag them. And that's why we're using those absolute references to make sure that we have locked in items. So there we are. We have that dollar sign right in front of the resource. So if I were ever to say, drag this over to the left and to the right, we're not going to deviate from those values. So I'm always going to know how many items Blair has in progress on both sheets. We're going to see this already built for us on the dashboard. So I wanted to really talk through this matrix before we see it. Next is the asset type. We're also going to build a chart based upon our asset type. We're also going to pull in information year over year, and we are going to make a line graph for requests month over month. Our formula is saying if the month is January of the request and the year is 2018, then count that up. And you can see we have 1 request in 2018, 5 in 2019, and 8 in this year of 2020. All right. I'm going to save my work, but I'm going to go back to our activities for a moment. So we worked through this whole activity of total request calculations. We wrote the first function, that first count if. We created the cross sheet reference to the creative request intake sheet, finished the first function, intake status, and then value 2, added that second count if, finished the second function, and then pasted that formula into the remaining cells. So we worked through that together. Does anybody have any questions about what we made at this point? All right. So I do promise that we're going to get to that question about, is there a way to add in the dashboard only some part or a cell of another sheet? We're going to start doing that next. Our next activity is to customize the dashboard. And what I am going to do is, we see that we have our little refresher here of the 5 steps in creating a dashboard. What we want to know is this scenario. This is our internal facing dashboard. How many items has our creative team completed? How many items does each creative designer currently have in his or her bucket? And what is the timeline? How often are we getting requests in January versus June? I know that when I worked in textbook publishing, we functioned at a fairly academic year. So if we were going to have lots of campaigns going out in August and September, that means we were probably requesting images for those campaigns a month or 2 ahead of time. So we were able to graph that. So it's interesting to see how your work is also going to start having some patterns to it, and those might start making more sense. Excellent. So I'm going to scroll down. And we have the title widget for you already on this sheet. I'm going to make the total requests and total completed request metrics, and then give you 2 minutes, maybe less, depending on how quickly you guys make this, to do this on your own. And this is directly going to answer your question in the chat. All right. I'm going to ask that you watch me do this, and then you can do it on your own. I'm going to go to this left panel menu, and I'm going to go home. In my creative request folder, so I'm going to go to Dashboards for Marketing, go to that creative request folder, and open up this creative request dashboard internal. This is where we're going to be working next. What you are going to notice here is the chart we said was already set up for you. How many items does Mark Lee have not started, and you can see if I hover my mouse over this, he has 1 item not started and 4 items he's completed. And I know exactly how many Kenji, Blair, and Bob have. If I didn't care about completed items, sure, I could make the chart without complete, but easy enough, I can also click on the legend over here and remove complete. So I can see that we have a lot more items not started than currently in progress. And that might be something that we need to discuss as a team, why that is. So how do we pull in those very specific cells? We're going to do that right now. Again, watch me do this, and then you're going to have a moment to do it on your own. I am going to the Edit button, and I'm going to change the background to gray because I like working in gray. But when I'm done, I'm going to change it back to white. I'm going to add a widget. I'm going to add a metric widget, and notice this does say display key cell values from a sheet. I'm going to click that. Now I am going to add data. I have to go find the sheet where I want to add data from, so I'm going to go look for that. You might be able to type it in yourself. And here, that is my creative request work metrics. I want to pull in 2 items, this complete cell, and I'm going to have to make this a little bit bigger because now here we are, the complete items and the total requests. What I'm going to do is I'm now going to click OK. I have pulled in those 2 values. Now notice the names of the columns are showing up, not the actual values of what they are. I need to define that for Smartsheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this right away to a center aligned large layout. I'm going to call the title Total Requests. And then I'm going to change this to Complete and Total Requests. Now I'm realizing, because I'm doing this a little bit more from memory, this title might be redundant, so I'm actually going to remove it. And now I'm going to enlarge my font slightly. And because I'm working with a blue theme on this dashboard, I'm going to change these items to dark blue. This goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning, where pick a color scheme and stick with it. We're going to run with this blue theme for our creative dashboard. And when we get into our event dashboards, we're going to go with green. I'm going to click Done. And now I have selected specific cells from another sheet to add as part of the dashboard. Excellent. So before I send you to make that on your own, does anybody have any questions? Okay, I don't see anything in the chat. I don't hear anybody on the line, and I don't see anything in the Q&A. So I'm going to put up a timer of 2 minutes. And that's our total request and completed request. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. I'm going to make that as small as I can right now and put up a 2-minute timer for us. And again, as always, I'm going to be on the line. So if you have questions about adding that request metric, please let me know. All right, so We have finished that 2 minutes, and I'm going to double check to see how many people have their hand raised. It looks like we have 2 people. Oh, it looks like everybody has their hand raised. Excellent. Thanks. I appreciate that. So we're able to embed just specific cells. But what we want to do next, and I'm going to maximize this again, is we're going to move forward to add in charts. Now, we want to do a few different kind of charts here. We want a comparison of status requests. So anything that is currently live that is in progress or not started, so we can have a good comparison there. We want a representation of how many tasks each designer is assigned, broken down by status. We have that one. Requests by type. And then another metric widget showing year over year and month over month, with that month over month being a nice time chart. So what I'm going to do is I am going to build these and then give you 2 minutes to build them on your own. So it's going to be a little bit watch and repeat right now, because we are bumping up on time, and I want you to see both the event management dashboards and the executive dashboards. And I do recognize that was due to my own computer issues. So A, I appreciate your patience with that. And B, if you do have to leave at the top of the hour, that's okay. I'm going to make sure that I continue teaching and you can watch the recording later. So my sincerest apologies again. So I'm going to make a live request, and that is going to end up looking like this. It's going to be a pie chart comparing not started items to in progress items. I'm going to go back to my creative request dashboard. I am going to choose edit, add widget, and I'm going to choose chart. Now I've got to go find my work metrics again. And what I'm going to do is I am going to select 4 cells, not 2 this time. I am going to select the 6 and 1, but what I also want to select is not started as in progress. Notice that that is associated with a parent row. So technically row 3 is a child of row 2, and I'm going to show you why that's important when you start making these metric sheets. If I were to simply choose not started and in progress, I'm going to click OK. Smartsheet is going to give me a pie chart assuming value 1 and value 2. Here's the problem. I cannot edit this legend. Titles and legend is set up. I can only move that legend maybe to the top, to the bottom, or to the left, or remove it altogether if your information is clear enough just as a pie chart. Mine is not, and if I can't change those values, that's a problem for me. I don't want to have to put a rich text widget saying value 1 equals not started items. So I'm actually going to go back and edit my data. I'm going to choose not started in progress and click OK. I have not started in progress. I am also going to change my titles and legends. So if I want to stick with this blue theme, my background color can be a lighter blue. I can center this information, make it a little larger. And there, it's not creative request work metrics. I want to show live requests. Excellent. And maybe I want my font to be that nice dark blue so I'm consistent. Maybe change it to be the lightest shade. Beautiful. But this isn't consistent with my color coding. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come down to series, and I'm going to apply certain colors. I'm going to say not started is going to be that darkest blue. And then I'm going to say in progress is going to be that medium blue. Excellent. Now, we do have different pie chart settings here, so I'm going to open those up. And you can see if you'd like, you can have it laid out as a semicircle. And if 86% seems really daunting for the amount of not started items, think about what your audience, and that goes back to our dashboard best practices, who's looking at this? Does 86% seem really daunting for the amount of not started requests? Potentially. So you might want to change your slice label to be value instead. So 6 not started items isn't the worst thing. Excellent. I'm going to change it back to percentages personally, and then click Done. Now I have my widget, and again, just as a best practice, I do want to fit it in this space. I'm going to shrink it to the smallest size I can, and then move it into this space so that it fits right here. Excellent. And I like the way this looks, so I'm going to save. Beautiful. So that's how we make this pie chart. I'm going to encourage you to take 2 minutes and create this. If you don't need the full 2 minutes, fantastic. But when you're done, please raise your virtual hand and then we can keep going. But before I start the timer, as always, does anybody have any questions? Excellent. I don't see anything in the chat, and I do not see any new questions in the Q&A. And I don't hear anyone on the line. So I'm going to put a timer up for 2 minutes. And then I'll be on the line if anybody has any questions. Fantastic. We have everybody. I'm going to lower everybody's hands and stop the timer. Beautiful. So we made a live request. Let's do requests by type together. We're going to make a bar chart. And specifically about this bar chart, we're going to have a few other settings that we're going to look at. Excellent. So if you would follow alongside me, that'd be incredibly helpful. I'm going to choose Edit. And now I'm going to add widget. Add widget. I'm going to choose Chart. So this requests by type. These are our asset types. And I want to know what kind of items we have requested of us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just from visual design over to value 3 column and then down. Now notice I am excluding the total column. I am excluding this completion type column. I could add those in if that was the point of this chart, but I literally want to know how many items we have made of each asset type. I'm going to click OK. Now, as you can see, oops, excuse me. You know what? No, please go back and edit the data. I sincerely apologize. I got a little ahead of myself. We're going to choose the whole chart over to the test column and include that total information. My sincerest apologies. So please make sure your data goes from all of the items all the way over to total. Now you're going to see how and why I made that mistake. I'm going to click OK. I have all of these values here. I only want the test value. I only want to know that total value. And I did it again. I can't change this information, so when I edit the data, pull in that top column and drag it down. Now I have not started, in progress, complete, and total. So your dashboard, your chart should look a little bit like mine right now, despite my being a little bit flustered in explaining it to you. What I'm going to do next is, in order to isolate this one total area, I am going to choose Select Columns. I want to only pull in the item column and the test column, and I'm going to click OK. And when I do, I should only see this total column now. In my legends area, I'm actually going to remove the legend altogether. I don't need to know that blue is total because that's what I've already done. So I'm in my legend area. I'm going to select none. I am also going to change the chart type title to total requests by type. Excellent. Now, if we had a little bit more time, I'd say let's change the background to blue and the font to dark blue. I'm going to go down to the horizontal axis, and I'm going to say click grid lines. Now I have item lines coming up from my horizontal axis, and is this useful? Maybe. With this set of data, it might not be. With our previous set of data, when we had all of the different statuses, not started, in progress, complete, and total, which would have been a little bit redundant, these grid lines coming from up from the horizontal axis could be helpful in separating out these categories. I'm going to remove those grid lines. I'm going to choose vertical axis, and I'm going to select grid lines. Now I have a clear understanding of how many requests have been made across the top here. And if I needed to change my series, if I wanted to change that to dark blue or another blue, I could, but I'm going to leave it at this royal blue. So I'm done. I'm going to click done. And here I have my request by type. I know that I'm going to have another chart in here and another metric widget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit smaller and move it over so that it fits nicely underneath my request per resource. Excellent. And as you can see, the wider you make your chart, it is going to adjust properly. So if I only wanted my request by type, these flip so they are no longer on an angle. As I am specifically and purposely making this smaller, they are going to angle so they're a little bit easier to read. Excellent. Can you resize the numbers inside the chart? Unfortunately, no. So all of these values here are set to a specific font type and size. So unfortunately not. Excellent. Any other questions? All right, I don't hear anything on the line, and I don't see anything in the Q&A or the chat. If you were able to follow alongside me, would you please raise your virtual hand? Excellent. It looks like I have 3 out of 5 of the participants that said they were able to follow alongside me. Now I have 4. Beautiful. Oh, great. Okay, we do have everybody. I'm going to lower everybody's hands. The next chart type we're going to create is going to be that month over month I promised. And I do think this one is really powerful. This was a favorite at my old company. I'm going to choose Add Widget. And now I'm going to choose Chart again. I've been brought back to my source data. Fantastic. That's what I need, that creative request work metric. And what I'm actually going to select now is the cell above January over to 2020 and down. That's all the information that I need. So when you have been able to complete that, great. I'm going to click OK. And now Smartsheet's Smart Chart Builder did decide, oh, this looks like this is going to be a line graph. And this is really powerful. I'm able to see immediately at a glance and by color how many requests have happened in January over the years, how many in July over the years. And look, July in 2020 seems to be a big spike for the amount of requests our creative team is getting. So this is a really cool chart to understand how things are going in your work. What patterns are there? And we found this really helpful at my former company because we did not have interior designers, graphic designers on staff. So being able to know when we should recruit more graphic designers to have on a temporary basis was really helpful, and also helpful to our graphic designers who were independent contractors. We could say, look, we know in the month of July, we always have a large spike of influx in preparing for the fall campaign. So we're going to need more graphic help. So we're not going to guarantee employment for you, but we can say most likely we're going to be reaching out to you. Now I'm going to choose the titles and legends now, and I'm going to call this month over month. And again, in the instructions, we are making it more aesthetically pleasing by changing all of the color schemes here. So in our series, we would change it all to blue. But in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going without the color schemes. Horizontal axis, the grid lines can be really helpful here because now I know everything that happens in May. And I like the grid lines on the vertical axis as well because it looks like a true chart. I am not going to change the colors, but I'm going to show you how. So if I did not want 2018 to be that regular blue, I can choose from my color palette what color I would like it to be. I can also choose data labels if needed. And if I wanted, I can choose some fill-in here. So if you have more data than a specific color scheme you're trying to stick with, you can use this circle and fill to also denote more data. Excellent. I'm going to click Done. And here, as you can see, this is a very wide chart. It's really helpful. The larger it is, the more helpful it is. So I am going to scale this down and bring it up into this area here. Beautiful. I am going to click Save. I like the way this looks. Now, I will say I am going to skip over one widget, but we've done that skill already, so I'm not worried about leaving you behind. The last widget I was going to make was another metric widget, and placing it in this area, looking at the year-over-year total requests. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. But before I do, was everyone able to follow alongside me creating that month-over-month chart? I have one hand raised, I have two hand raised, and I have everybody. Fantastic. All right. I'm going to show you what we aren't going to build in this chart. And that's the request year over year. We were simply going to make a metric widget that looked just like this, and we would be able to compare total year over year. And we would be pulling that from the metrics sheet that we already made. Now, a good practice that I like to say when you have finished creating a dashboard is changing everything back to white. I think the white has a nice clean look to it, but again, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's helpful to build in the gray. So this white background here, and all of our information is here. This can really help us dictate what's going on in our creative department. So let's switch gears, and we're going to talk about some events. I'm going to go into the activities, and I'm going to go to this single event dashboard. What we're saying here is that in our event management, we have a lot more virtual events happening this year in 2020 due to COVID-19. So we still want to gather metrics for that, and we still want to deploy information quickly and make dashboards quickly. So what we're going to do is we have a toolkit folder. Now, I'm not going to ask you to change all of the titles to Event Manhattan. I think that might be a good after-class assignment for you to do, but in the interest of time, we're going to skip retitling this. And then we're going to add specific data to the project sheet. I am going to ask that you follow alongside me for the rest of this class in the essence of time. So let's go. I'm going to go into my home button, into Dashboards for Marketing, and click my events. Now I have my project toolkit, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a brand new toolkit. So what I am going to do is I am going to right-click on the link itself and save as new. I'm going to delete copy of, and I'm going to say project toolkit. I'm going to title it Manhattan. And I'm going to say the date of our event is going to be in January. So I'm going to write 1/28/21. Now I am specifically picking that date. I want this to save in the current space it is, and I'm going to click Save. So now I have Project Toolkit Manhattan. What the activity we are going to skip in the essence of time is that we would ask that you rename all of these. We are going to simply rename, actually no, we are going to click into this main work back schedule right here. When you click into it, you find that we have the Gantt chart open. Great. What you are going to do is you're going to turn the Gantt view off, and I am going to show you where to do that. Where my mouse is flashing in the upper left corner of the screen, you are going to click that drop down and move it into grid view. We have some information here already, and it's a really neat assignment. We have our predecessors all defined. So if you take our event management class, if you are taking this full stream of marketing classes, this is going to be really powerful later. But what we are going to do today together is we're going to change a few cells. Number one, this cell, virtual event title here, we are going to rate this as Manhattan virtual event. Next, we are going to give the date of the event. I chose January 28th. I'm going to press enter. And now, because we have linked all of these predecessors, we know exactly when everything needs to be accomplished in our event. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over to the far left, and we're going to add in some dummy data. We're going to make a few health tasks red, a few yellow, and a few green. We are also going to slide over, and we're going to give a budget to a few of these tasks. I'm going to say 10,000 here, and I'm going to say we spent 5,000. No, I'm going to say that we spent 4,000 of our budget. Pretty good, huh? Excellent. I'm going to pause here just to make sure that everyone is working alongside me right now. And the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to come over to the right rail, and there is going to be a sheet summary. What's happening in this sheet summary is really cool. We're going to report on some of this, and we're going to pull out some specific information. I'm going to scroll down, and you can see Manhattan Virtual Event is already populated here because we rewrote that task name. We have red tasks being calculated, yellow and green. I made 2 of each just for ease. We have our budget calculating, and look, our variance is $6,000 left. But the last thing that we are going to do is we're going to scroll up, and we're going to change the event owner to be ourselves. And there I am, Amy McKenna. All right, I'm going to pause here for a moment. This was the setup. Just like we had to make specific calculations for our creative request metric sheet, we are doing some background setup that an event marketing manager might do for their event. So if you have been able to follow alongside me up to this point, would you please raise your virtual hand? All right, we have everybody. Fantastic. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go make a new workspace altogether. This will make more sense. I'm going to save this sheet. I'm going to go over here and click the Home button. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do, I have a lot of items here. You notice my Alta Vista events here. We are going to make a new workspace, and why we're going to do this is we're going to be able to change things at scale at this point. So I'm going to right-click on Workspaces and choose Create New Workspace. I'm going to title this Alta Vista Events. Okay. That showed up here at the top. The next thing that we are going to do is we are going to drag this entire events folder into this new workspace. And we're going to click Continue. I'm going to click on Alta Vista Events. Now I have my events folder in here. Beautiful. And I'm going to click on this. I'm actually going to go into my All Events folder right now. And I'm going to open up my All Events Budget Summary report. Previously, this report was set up, and I'm going to click on the report builder here. This report was set up to pull in from specific sheets. Now, I could scroll and find and pull in my other Manhattan event workback schedule. And you can see I know it's the Manhattan one because it's under the folder that we did title Manhattan. But that can be really tedious. I'm actually going to change the source to be Alta Vista Events and click on that. Now, every sheet that is in this workspace is going to be pulled into this report. And that's okay. We might have more subprojects to Project Brooklyn, more subprojects to Project the Bronx, and those will be pulled in too. But what we're going to make sure is our columns we display are appropriate, and right now we do have that set up nicely. Our filter criteria is going to be really important. Right now we are saying if the event date in our sheet summary is not blank, then pull that in. We copied over, and I'm going to go back to this for a moment, we copied this sheet it has an event date field, but it is blank. And we added that date into the main workback schedule, which was really cool. So that event title main workback schedule is actually not going to appear. I'm going to click Save. And here we are. Now my report is showing me, A, the sheet name, and we can see that we didn't actually retitle it, but B, the event name, which we did retitle. And I'm going to zoom in here. There we go. We did retitle this event name. We changed the event owner. Oops. And the event date and the actual and the variance budget. Notice we didn't pull in the total budget. We only pulled in the actual and variance. And when we chart off of the actual and variance, we're going to make a stacked bar chart. Excellent. I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to ask if you were able to follow alongside me, please raise your virtual hand. Wonderful. We have everybody. Going really quick now. I appreciate you guys keeping up, especially because the majority of you said you've never created a dashboard before. I'm going to go back to my home area. I'm going to go into my events. I'm going to click All Events. And I'm going to click All Events Dashboard. Now, we have a new widget on here. I'm going to edit and double click it. This is a report widget. I'm going to select the report I want. I was able to choose all events summary report. Now, I'm probably going to have to go back and change the sourcing of that summary report so that my new Manhattan event does live here. Because right now it does not. But this shows a nice grid of information that I've pulled into a report and can then surface here on this dashboard. Now, we pulled in a summary report. We did not make a row report, but that can be done as well. And a row report can be really powerful if you want to pull out specific data, like all red tasks. Excellent. So we're actually going to place an upcoming tasks report on the dashboard. So we are going to add a widget and click report. This is a row report. I'm going to ask that you click select report. I am going to ask that you go find the upcoming tasks report, which is all events in the next 7 days. I'm going to click OK. You might not have data in here, and that's because the events for Brooklyn and the Bronx that are currently being sourced are in the past, so there wouldn't be anything coming up in the next 7 days. I'm going to click Done. I can shrink that, and this can be really helpful, and I do ask that you use your imagination a little bit here, but if there were anything in here, as you might see in the activity, anything, and you can see both of these are in the past. Brooklyn happened in July, the Bronx in August. Anything in the next 7 days would appear here in a list, and that can give you and your team a clear definition of what your priorities are. Excellent. What I'm not also doing right now in the instance of time is changing all of my headers to green. Our events dashboards are going to be green, and that helps our audience know exactly what they're looking at. The more colors you add, sure, the more vibrant your dashboard could be, but you're also putting yourself at a disadvantage and your audience because they might not know exactly what dashboard they're on. I found color coding very, very helpful at my last company. Excellent. So we're actually going to fix this health of all tasks chart. Notice that we have some overlapping information here. That's not really helpful for us. So I'm going to double click on this chart. I invite you to do that with me. And I'm going to edit data. This is pulling from a report, and when you pull information from a report, you do not get to choose the information. It pulls only from that area. So even if I were to try and do this, it's not going to let me. I just have to cancel out. But I can select the columns. And I'm going to say I want the event name, red, yellow, and green tasks to be the only ones that appear. And when I click OK, now my Brooklyn virtual event and my Bronx event would have information populated if there were information there. If I did change the source of this report that I am pulling information from, and you can see it's grayed out now, I can't change this. It's all pulled here, and click OK. And again, I have to select those columns again. But I would be able to choose, I would be able to see my Manhattan information here as well. I'm going to click Done. Excellent. Why is that not working? Seems like it's not Friday the 13th today, right? Excellent. Switching the source of my widget across all events summary. Beautiful. Okay. Not sure why that little glitch happened, but at least you got to watch me troubleshoot through it. There we are. And here is one of those times when I would suggest in your series you keep a good eye on red-green color blindness, because you can have red and green tasks next to each other, but if they are the same shade, maybe making this red, oops, yellow, and green, I suggest choosing a different shade of green so that a teammate of yours could differentiate between the two. I'm going to click Done. And I'm going to click Save. Beautiful. So I promised a stacked bar chart, and that's what I'm going to build right now. I do recognize that we have 2 minutes to the top of the hour, so I'm going to go a little bit more fast forward. This way, those of you who have to leave and have to watch the recording a little bit later can do so and not have to spend hours and hours there. But all of the activities I am doing are going to be found in the excellence.smartsheet.com Smartsheet University, and you have access to these for as long as you need. So if you want to watch me do these and then practice them on your own later, I would encourage you to do that. What I'm going to be doing next is charting to track budgets across all events. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to help myself out and this was the one I changed. Excellent. I'm actually going to change the title of this so it looks a little bit neater. All events. Beautiful. I'm going to use a stacked bar chart here. I'm going to edit, add a widget, and choose a chart. I'm going to find that report. Now notice it is a report. Notice I did make that change, so it did update in real time. And I'm going to click OK. I have to choose all of this information. This is very long. This is what we corrected before. So I'm going to select the columns that I need, and that's just going to be the event name, the actual, and the variance. I'm going to click OK. Now, I mention a stacked bar chart because I think they're very, very powerful when you're looking at budgets. And again, for those of you who can stay, thank you so much. This stacked bar chart is giving me the variance, so how much we have left, and how much we have spent, the actual. Those total up to the budget. So to compare and look at our growth, I'm going to choose using the stacked column chart. Now, as my actual amount grows, as I spend money, that is going to move up the bar chart up to that $10,000 mark, and I'm going to know how close I am to the top of my budget. I'm going to go to Titles and Legends, and I can keep that to the right, but I'm actually going to put it on the top. My horizontal axis I could use, but I like my vertical axis. Horizontal lines coming off a vertical axis. I know, it sounds a little silly. And again, the series is where you would change the color. So actual, we're going to have as dark green, and variance we're going to keep as that lighter green. I'm going to click Done. Now, anytime a new event is added to this report, automatically that new event is going to appear here. So that becomes really powerful because I'm going to choose to make this very wide. And when I do, as new events are added, the chart is going to react appropriately. I'm going to click Save. Now, admittedly, this isn't the most elegant dashboard that I have made, especially because I'm missing a lot of data due to speed. But here is where you can see reports of what's going on at a high level, the health as well, and across all of your events, what your budget is. I'm actually going to look at the Bronx right now. And this dashboard was automatically made because we copied over that toolkit. Because we copied over this one, we copied from the toolkit one sheet and 4 reports, we automatically have information coming in here. And you can see what kind of widgets these are. This is a metric widget. We are pulling information actually not from the sheet, but from the sheet summary. We're pulling in a shortcut widget. And all of these are going to go to sources regarding the Bronx. We have our budget pulled in. And what's actually really cool is this widget right here. It is not a title widget. It's a metric widget. We are pulling from the source sheet itself this particular cell. So I asked you to retitle Manhattan, and when you have a moment, you're going to go back, and I'll show you right now, all events dashboard. I'm going to go to the Manhattan dashboard. I'm going to go down to the sheet summary and choose the event dashboard itself. Manhattan virtual event. I did not pick that. We have charts already building for ourselves, so the health of all our tasks is already being summarized here. Our upcoming tasks, because I made this far enough in advance, we have some dates coming up that we're going to have to hit. And I added my name here so you would find yours as well. We have some missing data, but we can go back and find that. Excellent. So we have been able to automatically create, with very little effort, a dashboard associated with a whole new set of information very quickly. At this point, for those of you who have been able to stay on the line, do you have any questions about events? I see nothing in the Q&A. I see nothing in the chat. Excellent. So let's keep going. Let's make that executive dashboard now. The executive dashboard is a dashboard. It is going to be a little bit of a combination between a portal and a dashboard, though, and I say that for a few reasons. Number one, someone can click on an image and be brought to the new dashboard we just made. But we are going to place in this one place, in this space here, a nice widget, and we're going to put in a chart widget. I don't want to have to recreate the wheel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Creative Requests. I'm going to click Edit. And then I am going to come to these 3 dots. I am going to copy this widget. I'm going to click Cancel. I am then going to go back to my executive dashboard. I'm going to edit, and I'm going to right-click and hover over Paste. Now notice I get a blue background as to where this widget's going to paste, and I can see how all of the other widgets are going to react. I'm going to take my own advice and paste it here. I'm then going to shrink it very small and move it up into the area that I find appropriate and space it as needed. Now notice my legend is a little bit off to the side. I'm going to double click. I'm going to change my legend to be on the bottom. And what I'd probably want to do is I'd want to change all of my color schemes so that they match up with that blue square nicely. But I'm going to click Done for right now. So what's really powerful about this is that I've actually changed this widget, but it is just a copy of the widget over here. So that does stay intact. They are not connected. I am just doing a simple copy and paste of work I have already done. Let's do it again. Let's look at that executive dashboard and let's go find our all events marketing. I think it's going to be really important that our executives always know our budget for our virtual events. So I'm going to copy this widget and go back to my executive dashboard, edit, and then paste in an area. Whoops, that seems a little large. Excellent. I'm going to paste down here, shrink it, drag it up, and place it here. Now, this doesn't look visually appealing at all, in my opinion. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to flip my stacked bar chart to be horizontal. There we go. I think that's a lot easier to read in a smaller space. So what's really powerful about this executive dashboard are a few things that I called out earlier. Number 1, we've got color coding, and again, in the instance of time, I would color code this. We have color coding, and we're driving people to a certain area. Again, color coding and driving people to our main dashboard. I can change this right now. Go to my advanced options and choose my all events dashboard. Beautiful. And anything else. So maybe this is your campaign funnel metrics that you're going to be putting in here. What's also really nice are these image widgets here. This is a simple line, but it makes a really nice, clear slice across your subjects so people know what it looks like. And I will encourage you that once you have created your own executive dashboard after this class, that you check out how it looks on your mobile device. Excellent. So I am officially about 10 minutes over time. For those of you who have been able to stay, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate very much your patience with my computer issues and staying here with me. I appreciate that you went through this at lightning speed with me at the end. And I'm happy to stay on for another few minutes if you have any more questions. But you can enroll in our next sessions. We have many more marketing tracks. And if you ever want to learn more, you can do so by going to the Solution Center and looking at some other sheets, reports, and dashboards tricks throughout our program. Excellent. Well, that's all I have for today. Thanks again, everybody. I'm staying on the line for questions, but if you have to leave, I wish you a very, very happy Tuesday. Oh, you're welcome, Alessandro. You're welcome, Ankit. Good luck. And if you have no more questions, I wish you a great rest of your day.